Welcome to this tutorial where I will show you how to search the GeoReM database. That is the database of geological and environmental reference materials currently hosted by the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Before you search the database, I would just like to highlight that if you are using data from the database, make sure you cite the database. And the best way to do that is citing this work which describes the structure and the release of the database, and you can see the DOI here for the reference. Well, first off, when we look at the database, you see down here a button, Query GeoReM, and it shows us that there are several different ways we can search for reference materials on the database. The first option is to search from samples or materials. Then we can also search based on purely geochemical criteria or chemical criteria. We also have the option to search by bibliography if you're interested in specific papers and the reference materials in them. And lastly, we have the option to constrain our search using the methods that were used to analyze the reference materials or the institutions or laboratories where the reference materials were analyzed. First off, I'll show you how to query the GeoReM database based on sample and materials. So what we get here to the left is a list of all of the reference materials names that are registered in GeoReM, which there is data on. You can scroll through the list and find the reference materials you're interested in. It's also possible to select a provider up here, for example, like the USGS, if you're interested in specific providers of reference materials. You also have the option to search a partial name for a reference material, or you can filter based on categories such as biological, environmental, geological, or microanalytical reference materials. There's also a shortcut, so for example, if you use Control or Command F on the web page, we can search for the BHVO reference material, and that will take you straight down to that reference material, so you don't have to scroll through the whole overview over here. So I'm just going to select this reference material and add it to my list of reference materials to search by. In addition, down here you can see you have the option to filter by material types. In this case, I'll just take all of the materials, but if, for example, you were specifically interested in mineral reference materials, you could filter based on that criteria down here. So let's search for BHVO and see what we get. If I scroll down, you get the overview of the results of the search. First off, you see all of the different analytes out here to the left, and then you get a little information about how many values are measured. So the range of values measured, and the count of how many values and data points there exist in the database. Then there's a couple of options here. So, for example, if you click this info button, it will take you to an overview about the reference material, where it's coming from, the provider, and all of its information here. Additionally, you see this yellow highlight with preferred values. Those are the values as they have been certified or sort of the more established accepted values, and you see all of the references to the accepted values over here, as well as the different analytes on the left. And this data you have the option to download through clicking on the download button. But through GeoReM, we can also get all of the raw values out. So every time a study has measured a reference material, in this case BHVO2, alongside their unknown samples, that data is registered, and it allows us to check for the method offsets or laboratory offsets for the same reference materials, and is a very valuable insight in terms of data quality if you're doing big compilations. So for example, if I move down to one of these elements, let's just take here, scandium, for example. You can see I can actually click the scandium icon. It tells me that there's 332 values in this that's measured for scandium for BHVO. And if I click on it, you get an overview of all of the unknowns. So it's the same reference material, but measured as an unknown alongside samples. You get an overview of all of the methods, the institution that did the measurement, and in addition, all of the references and the reference to the original works out here on the right side. If you click download data, we get the option to download the table for Excel that is in the CSV format. So if I click that, You'll see over here, it's now been downloaded. So if I open my Finder, we see this is the file with the reference to GeoReM that I just got, and I can load into any sort of Excel application or coding application that I want to use. Here I'm just opening it in Excel, and you see all of the data set from the web page as it was shown before, with the units and all of these metadata information on the publication and the methods. I will just show you a few more options for the search. So if we go back to the main page, here, we can go through chemical criteria. So in this case, we are not interested in specific reference materials, but only a specific element. So let's see if we can find something interesting to look at. Maybe take one of the isotopes. Let's take oxygen isotopes, for example. Then I can click Show Sample List. And here it shows me, okay, for oxygen isotopes, this is the list of all of the reference materials where there's an oxygen isotope composition measured. And it also gives you an overview of the different species. So you see a lot of these are mineral species. If we, for example, we have the option to constrain the search even further, or we can here already say, okay, I'm interested in the zircon oxygen isotope standard. Then again, you get a similar looking data set where you see all of the values measured and what university or institution they were measured at, and a link to the reference. And likewise here you have the option to download it and download the table for Excel to use in your study. Let's just take a quick look at one of the last options to search GeoReM, and that is through bibliography. So we go down here to bibliography, and here you have the option to search from the authors. Oh, here it's just a small little slow to load, but you have the option to search for the authors. It's based on mostly last names, so you can add specific studies into this pile. So let's just do Control F and look for example, Wilbold. So let's say I want to look at the reference materials in Wilbold's papers. I have the option to constrain the search even further by taking a specific publication year. We will do that. We'll just keep all of the years. We can also constrain the search by journals. But let's just say, other than the author, I will just add the search up there. And then you get a bibliography overview of all of the papers where Wilbold is an author, the IDs for those papers, and likewise you can click all of these links and see exactly what was measured. So in this case we had molybdenum isotopes measured for B2O and JB2 in this specific study. So this is another way to give you an overview of checking reference materials through the GeoReM database. I hope you found this tutorial useful and that it helps you guide your way through searching the GeoReM database for your own applications in the future. Thank you so much for listening and happy querying.